Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chrissy. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you guys are really excited about today's tutorial. I'm excited to show you guys how I create this tumbler. Today's tumbler is a really popular one. I have been getting a lot of orders for this one, and whenever I post it up in the group and other groups, I get a lot of questions about how I am able to add a picture to a tumbler, how I create the alcohol ink swirl around the pictures. And so I'm really excited to show you guys how I create it. And if you're excited, then stay with us and let me know what you guys think at the end of this video. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be working on this 16-ounce tumbler. This is actually an order I have to do, and this is the style tumbler that they wanted it on. This is actually the most popular style tumbler that I have had ordered for this type, if that makes any sense. I love this tumbler. I get these from the Steel Magnolia. They are 16-ounce travel tumbler, and they do come with a twist top lid, which is one of the reasons I love them so much. And then bonus, you get a handle. I will link them down below so you guys can check them out if you don't know about them. They're a really awesome company, and they have really a lot of really unique style tumblers, a lot of different ones that you probably won't see in any other companies, and that's what I love the most about Nikki and her company. So if you want to check them out, there will be a link in the description down below. And I already went ahead and prepped and spray painted this tumbler. I did prep it with our Rust-Oleum Chalked Ultra Matte paint. This one is a quick dry, and I like using a white base because we do use clear water slide for this. You can use a white water slide, and you can use printable vinyl for this. I just love working with clear water slide. That is just my choice of paper to work with this style tumbler. But like I said, you can use whatever you like. The style and the technique I'm going to show you today is basically going to be the same, because we are going to apply the pictures to the tumbler first, let that dry, and then we're gonna go in and apply our alcohol inks around the picture. So I'm gonna move the camera down so you guys can see how I apply the water slide. Besides prepping, that is going to be the first step we are going to take to get this tumbler started. So stay with me. I'm going to move the camera down so you guys can see the next steps. All right guys, so we're back, and I faced the camera down like I said. But before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the water slides. And these are the pictures that we are going to be using today. So we're only going to have 2 pictures on here, but depending on the size of the tumbler, you can probably put up to 6 to 10 pictures depending on how big the pictures are and how you place them on the tumbler. Because this is a smaller size, and the customer only wanted 2 pictures, I'm only going to be working on the front and the back side of the tumbler. I did do another one like this just before I filmed this video where they used about 6 pictures, and it was a little bit not difficult, but a little bit challenging to do, just because there was a lot of pictures to put on such a small tumbler. And here on the bottom you can see the space is very limited, so I did have to make the pictures a little bit smaller. But if you play around with the size and just let your customer know that depending on the size will determine how many pictures you can put. But anyways, besides that, I wanted to just let you know what brand of water slide I am using. I have been using this brand right here that I get on Amazon. I will also link my Amazon shop down below so you can check out all of the products that I get from Amazon. And this is the clear water slide. You want to make sure that you're getting either clear or white depending on what type of project you are doing. And then also you want to look and see what type of printer. So you want to get the paper that is specified for inkjet if you have an inkjet, and if you have a laser, then you want to get your laser paper. I did actually just order a new brand of water slide, and I'm really excited to check it out. But if you want a more in-depth video on how I create my images in Design Space, print them out and seal them, then let me know, because I can make a video dedicated just for that. So once you've printed out your water slide on your paper, you want to let that dry before you seal it, because if you go in too quickly sealing your water slide, that will cause the images to bleed and it will mess up your print. So you want to make sure that you let the picture dry completely. I usually like to let them dry for a couple hours. A lot of the times I will print out my pictures and kind of just let them sit overnight, and then I'll seal them the next day just to be sure. But the sealant that I use is the Krylon Color Max Clear Indoor Outdoor. I like to get crystal clear because I actually ended up getting satin one time and it was really, really hard to tell whether or not the pictures were sealed 100%, just because it did have like a matte finish to it. So I really like to make sure that I get the gloss crystal clear, because when you seal it, you're gonna need to put like a few coats of sealant on there, just to make sure that the picture is nice and sealed in. And I want to just show you how shiny it is. That's how you know it is completely sealed. If it's not completely sealed and you put it in your water too quickly, it's going to stretch, crack, and mess up your picture. So you want to make sure that you just seal it really, really well. I usually like to go in with about 3 coats. So just play with it, and until you see that it looks really, really covered, then you know you're good to go. It took me a few tries to get it right, but I think now I've been doing this for so long that I know what I'm looking at as far as the coverage when you're sealing your water slide. But don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen in the beginning. That's how you learn. But yeah, that's just a little tip. So once you've sealed your water slide, you want to let that dry as well for a few hours. Again, I like to usually seal and then leave it alone for the day, or come back to it the next day before I apply it to the tumbler. That's just me. But if you're in a rush, you could probably put it on your tumbler after a couple hours. So you can see that I have the tumbler and I have a Tupperware full of water. I like to use warm water. I feel that it releases the water slide a lot faster than cold water does. So now that I have my water slide and my pictures, I'm going to just cut them out. Like I said, you can see I have only 2 pictures here, but I use the rest of the paper for another project I did. So when I'm printing out pictures, I like to try and leave a little bit of a border around the image when I'm first cutting it out. And the reason I like to do this is because I don't want to cut too much, because when I go in with the alcohol inks, I like to kind of try and blend the border of the picture closely to the person or the animal that's in the picture. So you'll see what I'm talking about when we're ready to alcohol ink this tumbler. So like I said, we're only going to be using 2 pictures. So I'm going to start with this one and show you how I put it on. Put it inside the water, let it soak for a little while, and I take those same fingers and wet the base of my tumbler. So now you can see that the image is starting to slide off of the backing. So I'm gonna just push it up ever so slightly and then lay it down and slide out the image. And this is a coffee filter. I use a coffee filter to avoid any of the little fluffies that come out from the paper towels. Make sure you smooth it out and you get out any air bubbles that might be in there, but that's basically what it looks like. Now I'm gonna just go and turn this over and do the back side. And now we're just gonna go in and do the same thing over here. So now that we got both of the pictures on the tumbler, you can see there are no air bubbles. Everything looks really nice and smooth. We are gonna just let this dry for about an hour on the tumbler, and then we'll come back and get started with the alcohol inks. All right, guys, so we are back. It's been about an hour since we applied the water slide. I went ahead and put in my little football holder so that way I can have a good grip on this tumbler while I'm going around with my alcohol inks. And I do have my alcohol inks here in front of me. I have this really neat like makeup holder. I need to figure out a better way to kind of organize my alcohol inks, but in the meantime, this has been working really well. So if you need something to hold your alcohol inks, then they have a few different sizes of these little lipstick makeup holders. I believe if you can find one that holds nail polishes, they'll hold them a little bit better. So yeah, I have my colors here in front of me. I have a paper plate, and what I use to apply my alcohol inks is a wet sponge. And you can see that this is the one I use. It's been well loved and well used, but a lot of my customers request the same colors. So we use a lot of pink, purple, and teals. So let's get started. All right, so for this tumbler, the customer requested pink, purpley tones with a little bit of teal. So I'm gonna be going in with Wild Plum. I may go in with a little bit of Senorita Magenta. And then my two favorite colors of alcohol inks to work with is Mermaid and Stream. So these three are from Tom Holtz. Let me turn this around. And this one is Piñata. Both of these brands you can find in your local Michael's and on Amazon. So I always like to start out at the bottom of my tumbler when I'm doing this, just because I like to get a base down and then I work my way up. And instead of directly going onto the tumbler with the ink, I like to take my sponge and drop my inks onto the sponge. I feel that dropping my inks onto the sponge gives me more control and also gives me that textured look. And so I kind of just put my finger on the back of the sponge and start tapping. Tapping and blending, tapping and blending. And I think I forgot to mention, but you see me wearing them, you're gonna need gloves. If you don't wear your gloves, your hands will get stained. And you can see, because this is wet, this kind of creates a little fading effect. And I kind of just tap it until I feel like the inks are starting to dry. And then I just go in with more. So I'm just gonna show you a little bit of what I'm doing and explain, and then because it's just like pretty repetitive, I'm gonna just fast forward through a lot of this part. But I wanna just show you slowly kind of the technique that I'm using and then go from there. So you can see that like blotchy effect using the sponge has created. And you can probably use like a makeup blending brush or another type of sponge. I'm sure those would work, but I've been using this and I haven't had any issues. Okay, so now that I got the bottom part down with this first color, I'm gonna grab a second color. I'm gonna make sure you close those up because you don't want them to dry out on you. And the second color, you can see I lost my tip here, but the second color I'm gonna be using is Senorita Magenta. And I'm going to go on the opposite side on one of these corners and just turn it over one time. And I'm gonna be going in between these two purples. And wherever I laid down the purple color, I'm gonna go in between and start laying and blending in this pink color. And I'm also gonna go on top of it in certain areas on the bottom. And I'm not worried about that line there. We'll go in there and color that up. And I try as best as possible to dab, to not drag. I don't want to wipe the alcohol ink on. I want to dab the alcohol ink on so that I can get that textured look. And in the crease, you may need to press a little bit harder to get that color filled in a little bit better. Okay, now I'm gonna start in between. And I'm gonna just stick with this pink color for now. And I'm gonna start making my way up and around the pictures. And I'm not worried about filling in a lot of the space right now, because since we're using a few different colors, I want to be able to blend those colors and add different colors in between. And you can see I'm not really adding too much color around the pictures just yet. We'll get to blending those out in a bit. So now that I got my pink lightly splattered around, I'm gonna go back in with the purple. And what I like about these alcohol inks is that they dry super fast. And you can layer nicely without having to worry about them running or any of that stuff. So we're going back in with the wild plum. And now I'm gonna go close to the picture, kind of on top of the picture a little bit. And if you need more, just go in with a little more. And just be careful with how you're placing your inks, because you don't want to accidentally get too close to the picture and cover up the face very much. And the picture she sent me kind of had the top of his head cut off. So I'm trying to really be careful to not get too close to cut off his face. So now I'm gonna go in with a little bit of this mermaid. And also you wanna make sure that you shake up your inks before opening them. Inks do tend to have a little bit of separation. So you wanna make sure that you mix them up really well. So I'm gonna just go in with this teal and go over that purple around the pictures again. And the reason for this is because I'm trying to create depth in the on the tumbler and around the pictures. And by layering and adding different colors, you can create that effect. And I'm just gonna go in where I see some white and just fill in with a little bit of that color. Just again, to pop in a little bit of more color in those areas. It can get a little bit difficult when you're working around the handle, but just take your time. And you don't have to rush when you're doing this. You can just take your time, play with the colors, and just keep adding until you like what you see. You do want to make sure that you don't add too many different colors because you don't want to muddy your piece. If you mix too many colors, you can ruin it. But if you take your time, then you shouldn't have any issues. Like I said, working around the handle is a little bit more of the difficult part. You just go and press a little bit harder in those areas and you can fill them in. When I get to the handle, I kind of just wrap it around. And still kind of utilizing that blotting. I'm going to go in with a little bit of gold, Rich Gold by Piñata, and I'm going to just shake it up really good. I love adding a touch of gold to alcohol inks. In the tumbler I did before this one, I used silver, and I love the way it came out. But we're gonna use gold on this one. And I'm just gonna gently tap, just to accent. Accent and blend with a little bit of that gold. The more colors you add, the more accents you add around the photos, really helps blend in those lines. And so this picture was kind of dark, so a lot of the lines were showing, so I'm focusing a lot of that gold and darker tones around the picture to kind of help blend in those harsh lines. I'm gonna just go around this picture a little bit more. And you can really start to see a little bit of blending. Taking that down again, and then we'll go here on the handles. Okay, so now that I laid that gold down, I'm gonna go in here with a little bit more, a little bit of purple. So I'm gonna grab more of that wild plum. And we're almost done here, at least with this part. So I'm gonna turn it over, go back in with some of this wild plum just to darken up some areas near the handle, right here, and here on the actual handle. I felt like the handle had a lot of light spots, so I wanna make sure that we darken those up. All right, and that's it. We're not looking for perfection. We are looking for a beautiful gem-like looking alcohol ink tumbler. And I just love how these always come out. I love how the pictures blend in so nicely. And I love the combination of colors that all of my customers pick out. And yeah, I just love creating these tumblers. I really do. They're so fun. You can pretty much do any collection of colors and make a beautiful tumbler. And these tumblers tend to be pretty special to people. A lot of people use these tumblers as memorial tumblers, or parents for their children, gifts for grandparents with their grandchildren. Just so many possibilities to these tumblers. I love creating them so much. And so once you finish applying your pictures, once you've let that dried and you go in with your alcohol inks like we did just now, the next step is to let this dry, let this cure. I usually like to let this dry overnight before I go in with resin. So I don't seal it with anything. I let it be. I let it cure and dry overnight. And I will see you back in a little while, and I will show you how I go in with my resin. So the next step after this, like I said, we're gonna add the resin, and then we're gonna go in with a little bit of accent glitter. I'm gonna be using a couple of different chunky glitters to accent the tumbler, and then we're gonna use a little bit of our silver moon dust, which is our ultra micro fine additive, to add a bit more of sparkle in the final coat. And yeah, I'll be back as soon as this is dry to show you the next steps. So hopefully you guys like it so far, and I'll see you in a little bit. All right guys, we are back and ready to apply our resin. So for this coat, I am going in with Fast Set from Counterculture DIY. I will list them down below as well so you can check them out. If you haven't tried them yet, you definitely need to go give them a try. Their resin is one of the best resins I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a few different companies resin, and their customer service is beyond amazing. Their products are great, and they have a huge line of not only resin products but other amazing products as well to use in resin, like pigments and other things like that. So go and check them out. The link will be down below, and let's just get started. So as you can see, the tumbler is fully dry. I have my part A and B here, and again, we're using the Fast Set. So when you're using Fast Set, you want to make sure that you're working pretty quickly when you mix the two together. Fast Set is not recommended for top coats. It is recommended for your first layers. You can use this as an adhesive to apply your glitter, and then you can use it for your coats to cover your glitter. But once you're ready to seal everything in and you're on your very last coat, then you're gonna wanna use artist resin or their medium viscosity, which is great for people who live in colder climates. I mixed 2.5 mLs of each side together, so we're gonna have a total of 5 mLs. I'm trying to keep this layer very thin because I'm going to go in with some chunky glitter and some other mixes that I want to put here on the tumbler, and I don't want them to move around very much. So you want the coat to be nice and even. You don't want it to flow around too much. So that's why we've mixed up 5 mLs, and we'll see how much we actually use out of this. You do want to make sure that you mix it up very well. You don't want your resin to stay tacky or not fully cure. So having equal amounts of both sides is very important, and it's also very important to mix them up very well. All right, so we're ready to go in. I'm not worried about any of these micro bubbles because this is just our first layer. I'm not concerned about that. Like I said, I'm just trying to get a very thin layer. So I'm gonna just spread it around. Make sure we get an even coat, but like I said, not too thick. Forget the bottom of your tumblers. I always like to make sure that the base of the tumbler is coated first, and then I go in and coat the handle. So some little facts about Fast Set is it's fully cures in 2 hours. It's usually hard to the touch in about 40 minutes. So if you're using it as your adhesive or as a top layer like this, then you want to make sure that you do move really quick, because this stuff starts to set super fast. If you have a warm craft room or work area, that tends to speed up the curing process as well. So it is hot where I work out of, because I'm in like the garage area. So we're gonna move fast here. All right, so I coated the entire tumbler, and you can see I still have a little bit of resin left. So we did not use the full 5 mLs. I'm just removing my gloves so I can move this around a little bit. I want you guys to get a really good view. And I'm going to grab my glitter and show you what we're gonna put on. So usually with these types of tumblers, I actually like to put wedding bells. A lot of the times I go in with silver alcohol inks, as I mentioned earlier before. But because we went in with gold today and we did some gold accents, I am going to go in with one of our brand new custom mixes that we just got in and actually sold out the same day. So we are going to be mixing up some more of this baby, and we will keep everyone posted as soon as we get all the ingredients to mix up some more. This one is called Savage. She is a beautiful chunky mix, but on the smaller side. So she's not a huge chunky mix. She does have some big pieces in there, but she's like a medium-sized chunky mix. You can see a couple of different golds, some iridescent opal colors in here. I love how this one came out. So I'm going to do what I always do and use my fingers to pinch some glitter in between my fingers. And as this spins, I'm gonna start from the bottom and sprinkle some of this up and around, back down. I'm not going too crazy with it, but I do want to focus mainly around the pictures just to accent those beautiful pictures we added to the tumbler. I'm gonna try to get some on the handle here. Some there. Yeah, that's good. So also what I want to do is add just a little tiny bit of holographic sparkle. And so my go-to for a subtle sparkle, especially over alcohol ink bases, is going in with our silver moon dust. Now I actually have plans to create a dust resin additive in a gold. So if you are interested in getting some other colors, then stay tuned, because we will be adding some other colors as well. We actually do have this microfine in a holographic blue and a holographic black, but I have been looking for the perfect shade of gold and pink to add to our collection as well. So I just put my finger inside, picked up whatever I could just by tapping on the glitter, and now just from way up here, I'm gonna just rub my fingers together. And you can see how light that is, how it's just floating down. That's what I want to happen. I literally want this stuff to just float. I want it to just give it that really beautiful sheen of sparkle. Not too noticeable, but noticeable enough. And that is it. So what we would do after this is let this fully cure, because this is fast set. Like I said, within 2 hours, this is gonna be fully cured. And we're gonna go in and put a final layer of artist resin on top of this. Let that fully cure for about 24 hours, and we will be done. I'm gonna move you guys down and give you a closer look, but that is pretty much it. That's how I create these tumblers. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I hope you found this tutorial informative and fun, and I hope it helped you guys out in figuring out how to start to create a tumbler like this. I know that there are many ways to create tumblers similar to this one. Everybody has different styles. This is how I create it. So I hope that you enjoyed it. You learned something from it. Let me know if you're gonna create this, if you're excited about this new technique, or if you've done something similar. Let me know everything down below. Don't forget to check out all the links that I have in the description. There's a link to my Facebook group, Instagram. You can connect with me on all my social media. I love to connect with all of you guys, and that is the best way to do so. Not only that, you can check out my Amazon store and see all of the stuff that I have used, recommend to create all these amazing cups, take pictures, all that stuff. So until next time, I will see you guys next week in next Sunday's video. Bye guys. Thank you so much. Mwah.